Hey, good morning and welcome to Trinity Christian Church this morning. Glad you guys are here to join us. We have a little bit of a different layout this morning. You can tell Julie's not next to me, at least not yet, but she should be arriving any moment. So we're glad to have you guys here with us. Brian's behind the scenes this morning. Shout out to Brian. Thank you for doing the production this morning. I am completely blind and deaf. I can't see or hear anything going on except for the camera in front of me. So we'll see how all that plays out. But I am excited to be here with you guys this morning. We're going to continue in our series. We're talking about how God helps us to reset and coming out of the pandemic. We're going to get into the last point. We're talking about how to enjoy life, how to learn to enjoy the things that God has given us. We're going to get into that in just a minute. I'm going to open us in a word of prayer, and then let's go ahead and worship together. Lord, we thank you for this moment that we can come together and lean on you, worship you, and find our heart and strength in who you are. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, look who decided to join me.
Happy Mother's Day to those of you who are mothers out there, moms, grandmas, people who act like moms, all of those things.
I guess that's about all we're going to say for mothers. We don't want to embarrass or offend, but we're glad to have you guys here. And no awards for special types of mothers going on at our service. Our church used to do that. The church I grew up in, and it was always the funniest thing to see the awards for mothers who had the most of this or the most of that. Anyways, I digress. We're not going there this morning, but we're glad to have you guys joining us. We worked out a few of those little tech issues that you can see. So now
I came, so I fixed everything.
Yes, now that Julie's here, everything is going to be better. We're going to talk a little bit more this week about the reset. We've been talking about resetting our lives and what God has next in store for us. There we go. There's our reset slide. So Julie's clicking so when you see me do that, I'm telling her to click the thing because we still have a few little techie things going on. Go ahead and click. A couple weeks back, we started this series out saying, what am I supposed to do with my life? And we talked about, can you hide the...
I got it.
And then I
Just
need to go
talking.
back. Go ahead and go back one slide. There we go. No, back.
Back is this way.
Yep, go back again. There we go. That's the slide we're on. So we're still working that out. What am I supposed to do with my life? We talked about that God has called us to discover, to learn, to grow, to manage, and enjoy. And we were going to unpack that later. We are unpacking that over the last 4 weeks. We talked about chasing Christ's attitude, not necessarily his lifestyle, but his attitude. His lifestyle might be a different lifestyle than we were called to live. He was called to physically lay down his life for us. And Paul told us in Romans 12, 1 through 2, he tells us our job is to be a living sacrifice. We're not called to necessarily die for what we believe in. We're called to live for what we believe in. So we chase Christ's attitude, not necessarily his lifestyle, which was poverty, no family, no place, residence, no address. That isn't what we're called to do necessarily. Now, maybe you individually have been called to something like that, but that's a nuance. That's not going to be what God is calling most of us to do, but he is calling us to chase Christ's attitude. And then, of course, we talked about what am I supposed to do with my life? Well, live every day with eternity in mind. There can be nothing more important than living each day knowing that that this is temporary. What we have that's eternal is what happens next.
Sounds good.
I thought I got the tap that she wanted to say something. Let's click the next slide. So we've been talking about resetting and how to reset our lives. The 4 topics that we've been going over with this one. There they are. Develop, focus, figure out what we're supposed to be doing, and then that focus helps to develop us. Once we decide what we're aiming at, our life now has emphasis and power. We can go in a direction and get things done. We talked about building confidence through Christ who gives us strength. We can do all things through Christ. We talked about reinforcing sustainability. God has called us to take our gifts, skills, talents, abilities, and to build something. God expects us to present a return on his investment. Your life is an investment. God has invested into you opportunities, experiences, passions, gifts, skills, even the things that you and I might consider tragedies or accidents or mistakes. God has invested into your life, and he expects you and I to do something that will sustain life. He expects you and I to do something that will allow us to continue living and make life better for those around us. So the last thing we're going to talk about in this series as we wrap it up is enjoying what God provides. And that's where we're going to go this morning. Go ahead and click the next slide. Enjoying what God provides is really what this last topic is about. And I think as Christians, sometimes we forget that God has called us to enjoy life. Ephesians 1 talks about how before God even laid the foundations of the world, before he had anything else that he physically did, he had settled on us, you and I, to be the object of his love. In love, he is the one who arranged all of this to work towards his glory. Long before you and I were ever born, he decided that you were important enough and I was important enough to make all of this for our enjoyment because he loves us and he cares for us. Now, with that in mind, we know that not all of life is about enjoyment, but it is a very important part of what God has called us to do. So we get down this journey of enjoyment. What we're going to look at this morning is just 2 paths. There's a dangerous side of enjoyment, which I'm sure you kind of know where we're headed on that. We're going to look at 2 passages on that. And then we're going to kind of look at the direction we should go with our enjoyment. So the danger of enjoyment and the direction of enjoyment. We have 3 verses we're going to look at. They're all from the NIV, New International Version. We have a passage from Romans, and I can't remember where the other ones are, but we'll click them up in a second. I think 2 of them are from Romans, and the last one
We'll figure it out.
is from 2 Timothy. That's right. So if you're looking for a spot in your Bible, Romans and 2 Timothy is where we're looking at this morning. Julie's going to go ahead and read this. And we're talking about first the danger, the negative path, how enjoyment can be negative, and then we're going to get into the direction that we should be headed with our enjoyment, entertainment, and whatnot.
Okay, so Romans 1:22-25 says, they became fools. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator.
All right, so in this passage, you can keep it back on the other passage here. In this passage here, the first danger that we see of enjoyment is that enjoyment can become an addiction. And in the book of Romans, the first chapter, about halfway through, it starts talking about kind of the broken condition of mankind. And this isn't speaking about everyone. It's not that everybody fits into this broken condition. Some of the things listed there, if you were to read it on your own, are pretty depraved. And you might find that, that has nothing to do with your experience in life. But it's talking about people who continually walk away from God. They continually chase things other than God. And he tackles the issue of enjoyment or entertainment here, because he says we become fools when we exchange a truth about God, what is true about God and life, and some of those other things we talked about at the beginning, right? You get your focus, you chase what matters, you follow the attitude of Christ, you live with eternity in mind. Some of those things that are true and unchanging about life, all right? People exchange that for a lie and begin worshiping things they make with their own hands. And we do see things like that in today's world. We see people spending much of their time and energy on things that we've created. And we almost live like we live for those objects and those things that are in front of us, rather than the world around us and the things that God really, the real truth of life is what's around us, not the things we have created for our own entertainment or enjoyment. Mm-hmm. So he says that the negative part or the danger of enjoyment is that we begin to serve created things. We become a slave to this. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the phone in my hand, right? It's not there, but you get the idea. Rather than the God who created everything.
And it's true. I mean, like you, for example, you can really tell with your kids. So if they have those wonderful devices and you take them away from them, they like lose it. Like our kids, like their heads turn around, green stuff comes out, they start floating on the ceiling, they climb in the walls. It gets
walking
crazy.
Backwards on the ceiling and stuff.
They turn into little monsters when they have their cell phones taken away, and you can tell, okay, there's an addiction to stuff. But here's the thing: it's more than just an addiction to the things we have. It's the desire to have stuff, and stuff becomes your fulfillment. It becomes where you put your heart. It becomes where you put your mind. You can't go without it. You need more of it. And instead of taking what God says about truth, instead of what he's telling you the way to live, to where to put your heart, where to put your focus, you're looking at, what do I need? What can I get? What makes me happy? And it's temporary. You notice, for example, you could get something that you really wanted and you're happy for a moment. And then you're like, oh, okay, great. Or great example, kids on Christmas. They open a white present, it's like, yay! And they're running around. And then 5 seconds later, they're like, oh, okay. And it's sitting in the corner. And you're like, should have just given you a box. Like, you see it. And we do that as adults. We, this is not just towards kids or kids bashing, for example, but it's just easy to use kids as an example because we all can see that happen. Kids show their emotions a lot better than adults do. Mm-hmm. So we see the results of what kind of we feel sometimes on the inside, which is that unsatisfaction with stuff. And we get so wrapped up into it and we turn our focus off of God and onto things. And even a lot of other religions do this too. They focus on the things that God has actually created and make that the passion of their worship instead of worshiping God who created and gave us those things.
There's a difficult discipline to worshiping an unseen God,
yes.
right? Not trying to put an object to him, because it's in our nature to find some type of object. That's why we have, pictures of Jesus. I don't know if you ever thought about it, but there is no picture of Jesus. We don't really know what he looked like. That doesn't make it wrong or evil to have a picture of Jesus, but I've seen people, bow down before pictures or idols or statues of saints. And we're called very clearly not to worship the created thing, but the creator who is in heaven. And that doesn't matter even if we make an image of God here on earth. That doesn't give us the reprieve, so to speak, from that commandment that God has said, I am alone to be worshiped. And he is an invisible God. In The world we live right now, the order of things right now, he chooses to remain invisible and ask us to come to him on faith. And our desire is to make something visible. Our desire is to worship something tangible, whether it's money, whether it's entertainment and the screens and the different things we can watch or do. We want to make worship tangible. And that's why it's very important as Christians that we make sure we remember that we worship in spirit and in truth. Worship doesn't come from an object that we find or gain or earn somehow in life, because then it could be taken away. The object of our worship could be destroyed. It's temporary. If it could be made with human hands, it could be undone with human hands. That's not what we worship. And there's a definite discipline to allowing our entertainment not to go down this dangerous road, I would say, of chasing and serving the created thing rather than the creator. Let's go ahead and click on the next slide. We have a passage here from Romans also. It's a little bit farther towards the middle of the book of Romans, Romans 14. And he's talking a little bit about lifestyle, and he's definitely talking about enjoyment and entertainment. And just to give you a context, he's talking about food and what we eat, but ultimately he's talking about the things we enjoy in life and how those things might affect other people. And one of the dangers of enjoyment is how our enjoyment might pour over into someone else's life. And as Christians, we're called to be accountable to this. I don't think there's too many other people who believe in a lifestyle where I'm accountable to make sure that you're not slipping up as well with my lifestyle. That doesn't mean I'm in charge of your lifestyle, but I'm in charge of making sure my lifestyle doesn't create or offer something up to you that might trip you up or cause you to fail in your walk. And so he puts the danger of enjoyment into this category. We are going to look at the direction we should go with our enjoyment, but we're looking at these two dangers first. We don't want to serve the created thing, and we also don't want to cause someone else to stumble because it's not wrong for us or it's an enjoyment for us. Let's have Julie read this passage here, and let's have a moment just to kind of meditate on what God's saying here.
Okay, so Romans 14, 20 through 21 says, "Do not destroy the work of God for the sake of food. All food is clean, but it is wrong for a person to eat anything that causes someone else to stumble. It is better not to eat meat or drink wine or to do anything else that will cause your brother or sister to fall. So whatever you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God. Blessed is the one who does not condemn himself by what he approves."
Wow, what a passage, right? I mean, you read that and you think, I never understood the word of God to be so open-minded about me walking with God in a lifestyle, in a creative manner that suits just me and God. And it's literally saying that here. And this, of course, had to do with food. And in the day of Christ, food was often offered to idols in different people's homes. It was customary to sin right before a meal, all right? And so a lot of Christians had a hard time with understanding. I walk into someone's house, maybe it's a business deal, maybe I don't know what it is, and we're having a dinner together. And the first thing they do is they take the food and they go put it on an idol somewhere, and they light a candle or incense or bow down before it, and then they bring the food to the table. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, that food was just offered to some God that's not real and given thanks to something that somebody made with their hands. And now they're putting it in front of me to eat. Do I not eat? How do I handle this? And Paul said, you just handle it however God leads you to handle it. He said, there is no cut, fast, and cut rule. He goes, all food is clean because God made it. The idol didn't make it just because somebody else presented it to an idol. But if you were in that practice yourself, or you know somebody next to you or in the house was in that practice and it's hurting their walk with God, then you need to choose to abstain. You need to choose to hold back. So he leaves it in your hands. And that's what's interesting about the direction of our enjoyment. And when he says food here, he's talking about all types of entertainment. Maybe it's the movies you watch. Maybe there's a movie you watch that you know your kids shouldn't be watching. And maybe it's you, either the violence or the level of romance or whatever's going on. Maybe it's not inappropriate to you. Maybe it's not tripping you up in your walk with God, but maybe one of the little kids around you, it is. This passage just says your responsibility to make sure your entertainment is not tripping up someone else. Your enjoyment of life is not bringing someone else down. Alcohol fits into this, right? To make sure that you're not eating or drinking something that someone else is struggling with. And if they are, it's not about pointing them out. He says, you keep this between yourself and God. You can decide to drink on your own if it's not a problem for you. All right. But if you know it's a problem in the house you're going to, then don't do it. He says, just abstain from it. Why condemn yourself by approving something in someone else's house or in a place where you know someone else is not strong to that and tripping them up. He says, don't do that. Just keep it between you and God, and in your own quiet place or with your family or wherever you live that out. If it's not a problem between you and God, if your conscience is clear, then it's okay. There's no problem with you enjoying that. Now, we do know there are certain things the Bible says just separate us from God. There's sin, and I'm not talking about the type of enjoyments that separate you from God and create sin in your life. So that's all sin is we're separating ourselves from God's best. And any enjoyment that we begin to worship or serve above and beyond our Creator can become an object that separates us from our relationship with God. So that's important to recognize as well.
And how do we know this? How do we know we're sinning? Well, as you develop your relationship with God, and this is what we've talked about before, everyone has a personal relationship with God. My relationship with God is not Charles's relationship with God, is not, your relationship with God or somebody else's relationship with God. It's a personal relationship. And as you connect with God, as you move forward with him, he will reveal to you those things in your life that you need to work on, that you need to clean up, that you need to give to him and say, you know what, God, I know that this isn't what your best for me is. And you're going to walk on that journey, and you're going to know that because you're growing in a relationship with him. You're giving him your heart. So, if you hear that small thing, I really shouldn't be watching this, that's God telling you, you really shouldn't be watching this. Or, if you know that when you go somewhere, you stumble and you sin, and then you repeatedly do it, it isn't right for you. And that's the thing. God has an individual relationship with you. He speaks to you in your heart, and you know when you shouldn't be doing something. And that's God telling you, you know what? Let it go. Focus on me, grow closer to me. But again, that's my relationship with God. And Charles's will be different, and yours will be different. But as you grow in him, as you build on that relationship, he will develop that in you.
And this can be true about a lot of different things in life. An example happened to me this week, and I'll just kind of hint on it, but I'm not going to give the details because this is between me and God. But I walked into a certain store, and it's a real popular store. And right in front of me was a whole display of stuff that God says not to do. Just that this is not the lifestyle I want you to live. And the first thing, I was just frustrated. Like, why is that what they're trying to force down my face as soon as I walk in the store? And I felt in my own spirit, I don't really care to shop here anymore. And I was talking to Julie about it. She kind of likes shopping there. And I thought to myself, this is this passage exactly. For me, this is not something that I really want to do anymore, because I feel between me and God that I just don't like the vibe I get. I don't like the attitude that I feel like I'm getting from kind of the forced idea. We want you to accept our way of seeing this or believing this or understanding this. So if you come in this store, you will believe the way we do. But not everybody else sees it that way, right? I see it that way. So this is something that I need to keep between me and God. Now, I know I'm sharing it with you, but I have to give you some example, right? This is something between me and God. And maybe just silently on my own, I just refrain shopping there so much because I kind of don't care so much for that style being shoved in my face. But it doesn't mean it's wrong for someone else. It doesn't mean that God has convicted someone else, or that my responsibility, right, now is to try to preach everywhere, oh, don't shop there because I don't feel right when I shop there. This is a perfect example of something that God may lay on your heart, but maybe not the person next to you, or maybe not, your family, or maybe not your friends that you hang out with. And so what he's saying here is do your best not to cause other people to stumble. And if it's something that is not right for you, if there's an entertainment or an enjoyment in life, maybe it's shopping, maybe it's a movie you watch, maybe it's music you listen to, maybe it's wine you're drinking, maybe it is food you eat. Maybe it's the quantity of all that stuff we do, right? Maybe it's not that we do it, it's just that we do it too much. I don't any of that. If you catch this, the danger here, or the caution here, saying if you catch yourself having too much, or letting that thing, whatever it is, become the object of your worship rather than the God who made it and made it for you to enjoy, it's time between you and God to hold back, to pull back, to not dive into that type of enjoyment. And if you know that it's okay for you, but it's harming someone else, or you think it might be offending someone else, you're the bigger person, right? God is literally saying, I have given you a relationship. You can hold back while you're with them because I've already told you that food offered to idols is not something that's bad for you, but maybe for them, they're still struggling with it. Now, the chance that you and I are going to run into food offered on a table to an idol is very slim. But there are a lot of things that we are going to consume in life that have been offered up to sin. They've been offered up to separation from God. And you have to decide in your own conscience whether it's right for you or not. And then how much of that is your responsibility to push on to someone else? maybe none at all. Maybe it just stays quiet between you and God. And in your walk, you refrain. But things that are sin, that are clearly spelt out as sin, aren't on this list. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about those gray areas where maybe for you it's okay, maybe for somebody else it's not. Things that might include movies, how you spend your money, where you shop, alcohol, wine, how much you consume or don't consume at all. All kinds of different things that include enjoyment and the things that we are called to enjoy in life.
Okay.
All right, we're on to the next slide.
I
I just got to check with the boss to make sure everything is good. So the direction. So what are we supposed to aim at? And that's what we're going to talk about now. Julie's going to read this passage from 1 Timothy. I said 2 Timothy, didn't I? I think it actually might be. I should check myself. I'll have somebody check me. This is either first or second. Actually, in my mind, I'm thinking it's 2 Timothy, but that's okay. We're going to read this passage, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it and wrap up. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay, so either 1 or 2 Timothy. Way to go, Charles.
I know, way to go. I'll look that up real quick. Go ahead.
17 says, those who are rich in this present world, do not be arrogant, nor to put your hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put your hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Do good, be rich in good deeds, be generous, and willing to share.
All right, so in this passage, he goes on to kind of share with us, and he's specifically sharing with Timothy. See if anyone's corrected me yet. He's sharing with Timothy, Paul is sharing with Timothy rules on how to lead Christian people. So this directly applies to us. When you see those words in parentheses, I made it personal rather than tell them and their. I took the pronoun out and put our pronoun to make it more interpersonal. But those who are rich in this present world would be all of us. Anyone watching this and has something on a screen that they can watch what we're doing right now, that is you. You have just qualified yourself in the rich in this world, okay? So those who are rich in this present world, he says, be careful. Don't be arrogant. Don't put your hope in the things that you own and possess, which is so uncertain. Those things work one day and not the other. They're with you today and gone tomorrow. As I started out the live stream this morning, 1 Timothy is correct. Great. Thank you. I don't know why I thought it was 2 Timothy, but thank you for that. It's so uncertain in this world. Like I was saying, when I first turned on the live stream, a couple of the computers and stuff, they didn't work. You can't put your hope in things that are so uncertain. We have to continually keep our hope on Christ. But God provides for us everything for our enjoyment. And he's just saying, just relax and recognize that God intends for you to enjoy this life. He provides all the things you have, your family, your food, your income, your jobs, your opportunities, even the things that are sometimes frustrating that we have to overcome for our enjoyment. So he says, here's what we need to focus on with our enjoyment. Do good. Be rich in good deeds. Be generous and willing to share. He says, this should be the focus of our entertainment. Our entertainment should be about including others, helping others to have a good time, taking what we've been given that's a blessing for our enjoyment that God has handed to you or to I or to us as a family, and opening that up to others, making sure that other people get a chance to share in that entertainment too. And that literally creates the joy that God intends for us to have, because the real joy that comes out of life is sharing with other people. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, okay, so here's
I got the note. I got something good to say right now. So
I don't know about that, but I just got something to say. A lot of times you hear people who are not followers of Christ say, God is just kind of like a killjoy. Like, he doesn't want you to have fun. He's not out there, he's sitting there giving you rules and restrictions. Like, if he really wanted you to have enjoyment in this world, you wouldn't have all these rules, restrictions. But think about all the things that we do enjoy and where they came from. Like, think about going out in nature, for example. God created that. Why? For our enjoyment. Relationships. God could have had us all be like nomads and living on our own, but he created us for a relationship and the enjoyment that comes from that. Sexuality, we didn't come up with that on our own. God created that as a way to reproduce. As for our enjoyment, God created those things. Our children, again, we could have been like, there's animals that produce and either eat their young or send them out to go.
Forget they even have them. They're gone.
But no, God created us to be.
Sometimes sounds like a good idea. I didn't say it.
But God created us to have those things. He wants us to enjoy our lives, and he wants us to enjoy a relationship with him too. So when you hear people say, "Oh, it's just about rules, it's just cycles," that's not what it's about. God does want you to have a fulfilled life. He wants you to enjoy the things that he's given you. So again, with that, he wants you to enjoy your life, but again, don't be arrogant about it. We don't put our hope in it,
Yeah, our hope isn't in the buildings that we can build or the way we can adorn them and furnish them. Our hope isn't in the income in our bank or the type of car that we drive, although those things can be an enjoyment to both us and to others. And there's all kinds of artistic things God has gifted us with. He intends us to use. One of the things that I'm going to enjoy in the new place that we bought is that I've asked my daughter to do some of the painting and the works that I want to put up around the house. I told her I want to give her a few ideas of some motifs in some different areas and see what she comes up with and put her stuff on the walls. She's like, "Really, Dad?" And I go, "Well, you're a great artist. Yeah, I want to enjoy the beauty of what you create and the things that you do." And what better? I mean,
he can put them in his office.
And the cost is pretty good too. I only have to buy art supplies, right? But not only is the cost pretty good, we can get something that we like, but I'd rather see something on my walls that my daughter did or that people I love, because I get enjoyment out of that. She gets enjoyment. And so not only am I saving money, which causes me some enjoyment, all right.
And I get to spend more of it then, so that causes me enjoyment.
My enjoyment meter just went down a little bit. But not only, do I get to share with my daughter in that enjoyment. And anytime someone comes over, I get to brag. Yeah, that's, they'll be like, "Really? She painted that?" So now if she watches this back, she knows the bar is pretty high, right? But she actually is a really good artist. So I'm looking forward to some of the things that she's going to create. And we're going to put those up around the house or in my office, wherever. In my office or in a hallway somewhere.
We'll see how far it spreads.
We'll see. As the quality level increases, we'll see as it spreads throughout the house or not. Anyways, but we are called with the direction of our enjoyment to do good, to be rich in good deeds, to be generous, to offer the things that you have to other people, to let your possessions flow into blessing others, giving other people an opportunity to enjoy them too. And that includes your money. One of the best things you can do with your money is give it away. Be generous with it. Hand it to people and places and opportunities to serve others and put them forward and move their life forward. One of the best things we can do with our possessions is not hoard them and keep them, but pass them along, give them to other people, create enjoyment in other people's lives, allow them to tell stories about those things or share them with their life and whatever it is that they enjoy doing in life. I thought Julie had something else to say. We're missing our cues this morning, but that's okay. I want to make sure that she has something important to say. I don't forget. She often has great things to say.
Sure. You're taking away.
Oh, I'm taking too long. That's what she wanted to say. All right, let's wrap it up. We got one last slide here that we're going to look at.
Out so you can go to Mother's Day lunch.
I know, it's time for Mother's Day. She's like, that's what my cue is. Go ahead and click the next one. So in short, what we're talking about this morning is enjoy what God provides. Be prepared to share, to give, and to let go. This is what God has called us to do in terms of enjoyment. Enjoyment's all about sharing. It's all about giving. And ultimately, it's about letting go, because the real joy in life comes not from holding on to things or worshiping things we've created or looking to buy the next coolest thing. While we can enjoy all those things and we can really look up to some of those things, you can often enjoy things that other people own. I'm going to use Brian. He's down on the screen right here. I saw a new vehicle that he bought, and it's just awesome. It's incredible. It's a Jeep. It's all tricked out. And I love that. I was telling Julie, I'm so glad I have a friend that I can enjoy that he has it. And I don't have to spend the money, but I can enjoy that he has one. It's true. You don't have to own it to enjoy it. Somebody else can own it, and you can enjoy the fact that they own it, and they get to share it with their friends.
He keeps telling me that about horses. For some reason, he's like, let somebody else own it, and you can enjoy it. I want to own one.
We don't need to own a horse. We can enjoy it as somebody else has one. And it's a great way to live life, because there's always an enjoyment around the corner. It's not something we have to own or possess or something that possesses us, but maybe it's something unique that somebody else has or somebody else shares or somebody else adds to your life, and you can enjoy it through them. We don't have to own everything. We don't have to have every single material possession in our house. We don't have to have every enjoyment checked off our list, our bucket list before we die. We can even hear other people's stories and enjoy things that they have done through that relationship. And that's where real joy comes from. And I think if we think about the direction that God has called us to go with our enjoyment, I think we need to open our minds to enjoying a lot of things that don't just include possessing things, owning things, judging whether or not what somebody else owns, possesses, where they shop, the movies they watch, what they drink. Judging whether or not that's correct is not necessarily what God has called us to do, but to just enjoy what he's given us. If we know that what we're doing might trip someone else, just to hold back either while we're with them or maybe permanently. Maybe it's a husband or wife, and you can't drink alcohol because they struggle with that. You just need to choose not to enjoy that in your life and to enjoy other things. I don't know. That's not our situation, but maybe it's someone listening. There's some other kind of a similar situation that you can equate that to. In short, God has called us to enjoy life, so let's do that. We got our last slide here. We talked about resetting our lives, developing focus, building our confidence, reinforcing the life around us with the things God's given us, and not to forget that enjoyment is part of the game. It's part of what God intends for you and me in this life, and he made you with enjoyment in mind. You are a pleasure to God. Your life is a pleasure to God. He loves you. He made you for a purpose. He has a plan for your life, and he wants to enjoy watching you step into that life, and he wants you to enjoy the life around you. But there are definitely some cautions, some things we need to be careful to steer clear of so that we don't fall into the trap of worshiping the created thing rather than the creator, or tripping up somebody around us with our enjoyment.
Yeah. So now we're going to worship together, and then we're going to wrap up the service. So please.
Strong and the water's deep. I'm not alone here in these open seas. Your love never fails. The chasm is far too wide. I never thought I'd reach the other side. Your love never fails. Stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes with the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. You make all things work together for my good. And you make all things work together for my good. Yeah, you make all things work together for my good. Yeah, you make all things
As we go ahead and wrap up, I'm going to read to you Acts 17, and this is verses 24 on. And it's just talking about how we see God and how we know him. And in fact, the whole kind of section of this is titled The Unknown God, because there was people who were worshiping God, but they didn't know him. They didn't know who he was. And so this was a letter written to them. And it says this: God, who made the world and everything in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and their boundaries of their dwellings, so that they should seek the Lord and hope that they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far off from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of our own poets have said, we are his offspring. Therefore, since we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the divine nature is like gold or silver or stone, or something shaped by art and man's devising. These times of ignorance God overlooked, but now he commands men everywhere to repent, because he has appointed a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by the man who he has ordained, and by raising him from the dead. And again, there he's talking about Christ and Christ coming for us. God in this passage is letting us know he created us. He created all these things, and he's not far off from us. It says, as we grope and search for him, but he's there. He's accessible to us. God is accessible to you. He wants a relationship with you. He loves you so incredibly much. He designed this world for our enjoyment. He designed it so that we can have a relationship with him. And he wants us to seek and find him, to be in a fellowship with him, to be in relationship with him. And it's not hard to do. He's accessible. I love that he uses that word in that passage. He is accessible to us. He is there for us. All you need to do is start your next step with him. Make that next step. Reach out to him. And just tell him, I'm here, Lord. I believe in you. Thank you for sending the one who died for me on the cross so that I can have a relationship with you. Thank you for sending Jesus so that I can be one with you. And just start that journey with him. He loves you, again, so incredibly much.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us this week. As you know that Trinity Christian Church, we've chosen to go online for right now. We don't have an actual dwelling location that we're meeting out of at this time. Yep. But as things are changing, we're looking at maybe getting together to have a worship service, one of our first worship services yet. We'll try to contact people more one-on-one about dates and schedules and how that can work out. But if you're part of the church, this is definitely where God has called you to serve. If you found other places to serve, we definitely encourage that too. You know, God has called us to reach out in many ways to serve people. It doesn't just have to be tied to one area or one specific expression. So I encourage you, serve. If this is where you give, Brian's going to put up there a way that you can give your offering to help out. And we always remind you that God's not poor. We don't give money because God doesn't have any. We give money as an overflow of thanksgiving in our heart for what God has done. If that's you, then this is a way that you can do that. You can text it right there. If not, I encourage you, just have a great week. Happy Mother's Day. It is so good to have you guys join us. We will be back next week with a new series. I'll tell you about it next week. Thank you for joining us all throughout these 5 weeks as we've talked about resetting our lives and looking at where God has called us to be in light of things changing in front of us. And I hope that it's an encouragement to you and you find purpose and direction as we continue to offer up, I guess, what you call content these days. All right. Okay. So I got to get with the times. Anyways, God bless. Thank you guys for joining us.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Thanks to Brian Glover for producing this for us this morning. We appreciate it.
Goodbye.